Hey y'all, my name is Davon Williams. This is the receipts. And instead of me trying to prep you all for what this show is about, I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory. So instead, I just wanted to give this ode to help prepare us for the show. To the unknown legends in literature, the Black women, whose works are often overlooked, the backbone, the life essence, the matriarchs, this is for you. Shout out to the commercial writers, mainstream writers setting the bar: Maya, Giovanni, Morrison, Walker, Butler, Shange, Hansberry. Shout out to the writers who evolved past pen and paper, learning to write in cornrow, twist, bantu, the original digital stories of our history. The songwriters, speech writers, lesson planners, recipe writers, scandalous TV show writers, and sisters writing checks. If there are any sisters writing checks, it's at Day Willing, like at DAY, willing, like willing and able, Day Willing. Now, before we go any further, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, the Black female body, the ultimate writing prompt, the birther of Black diamonds, the skin in living color, the reinterpretation of Eden growing from the scalp, the lips, an external representation of the bountiful spirit beyond its doors. And of course, that ass. The supplier of hip-hop lyrics, the star of countless music videos, the breaker of a billion necks, whop! The economic stabilizer. Beauty never emulated, but rather stolen. Rebranded, colonized, fetishized, dolazoled, dragged by queens, Kardashian. You're being mined, sis. But I digress. Shout out to the Black First Lady who taught us to go high when the bar was so low. Why don't we ever listen? Called an ape in heels, go high. Likened to African gorillas, go high. Shout out to the revised blueprint of what a First Lady should be. Speeches written to perfection. Each magical word sparking a new flame into the heads of every Black girl that listens, every Black girl that reads, every Black girl that dreams, go high. Speeches so transcendent that they even cross over and get renamed Melania's. Speeches bouncing around like a tennis ball hit by the great achievement writer Serena. They will steal your voice right after they say it's declined, then say it's divine once they left you behind or confined to their design. But hey, it is what it is. Making it clear that you can be nothing more than the coolest monkey in the political jungle. Ursula has nothing on these thieves, but you still go high, knowing that your blueprint is still intact. Shout out to the mothers of artists whose lives will be reduced to a portrait, a poem, a play, a song now available on iTunes. Us artists, knowing that our works will never measure up to your birthed manifesto that is our lives. Shout out to the girlfriends who fake it, sharing the greatest work of fiction to keep a Black man's ego intact. Sacrificing your satisfaction for the greater good, you deserve a Pulitzer. Your fables giving hope to fragile masculinity, much like Wakanda pitches hope of a unified Black. But isn't that how prophecies work? What happens to a dream deferred? It gets passed down through the blood until the cycle is broken. Period. Shout out to the uncredited writers. Oh, you don't know? Well, me too. No, Me Too. Created by Tarana Burke, not Alyssa Milano. But aren't most movements made by the dark and taken by the white? I mean, light. I mean, me too. No, I mean, us too. I mean, Blacks too. Shout out to the underground writer Sandra Bland, the co-author of every applause line from an angry Black poem about the police, realizing that no college, no Sigma Gamma Rho membership, no advocacy job could cure writer's block better than a noose. No message gets the conversation going better than getting a hashtag, having no idea that when the cop pulled his taser and said, "I will light you up," that he was right. Your bestseller is lit, sis. But allow me to shout out her new protege. Say her name, Breonna Taylor. Say her name, the system failed her. Say her name, killed by raiders. Say her name, Breonna vapored. Shout out to the mothers writing eulogies, a long-standing tradition of writing the foreword to your child's murder. Bestsellers like Harry Potter, but the deaths are hollow. Like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Come through, Mammy Till. Come through, Sabrina Fulton. Come through, Leslie McFadden. Give us a new perspective on how they crucified a God. Tell us about last statements from your baby's mouth. Behold your son, but forgive them, mother, for they know not what they do. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Mother, into your hands they shot my spirit. Right on, Black Marys. I am not a Black woman, but I am the byproduct of your works. Thank you for the shout outs of lessons learned. Thank you for being the first to say Black Lives Matter when us Black men were running on CPT. Thank you, grandmas, for your hands that know nothing but how to mold, and when they are pushed together, summon the guards of angels. Thank you. Now shout out. We see you. Shout out. We feel you. Shout out. Because we hear you. Shout out.
We wear the mask that grins and lies. It shades our cheeks and hides our eyes.
You see, we are destined to bear and tell truth in a world socially constructed to rely on us for the structure of their families and homes and cultural identities and businesses.
This debt we pay to human God. With torn and bleeding heart, we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties.
You know the Black girl over there, the Black girl with the nappy hair, the Black girls whose elbows can't skip a day without lotion, whose hearts and heads are filled up with self-hate and bottled up emotion. The cocoa brown girls who have to face society every day and be tough, because no matter how good they straighten their hair, their good is still not good enough.
Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs, and they let them only see us while we wear the mask? We smile.
It's always so romanticized. We have to be maternal. We have to be the savior. We have to make that white character feel better.
Because you don't want to come off as one of those average Black girls and come off as rude. You know, popping their gum and shaking their neck. Yeah, because those Black girls get like no respect.
And we sing, hey, baby, bye. We sing, hey.
I am Black. And I am a woman.
Everything that I am and everything that we are inside is what makes art and this world rich.
But let the world think otherwise. We wear the mask.
That's my biggest gift.
To every Black woman, we thank you. Introducing Ann James, who's had an extensive career in theater education, stage direction, and conflict resolution in corporate and artistic environments. Ann has had the opportunity to direct on several regional stages, including The Alley, Steppenwolf, Dallas Theater Center, Hartford Stage, and Cherry Lane. Ann is devoted to making both the stage and the screen safer places for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to practice their craft. Her company, Intimacy Coordinators of Color, has solid partnerships with the Actors Equity Association, Arts Equity, Theater Communications Group, Time's Up, and ART New York. To that end, Ms. James is pursuing America's first Master of Fine Arts in Performance Pedagogy with emphasis in intimacy direction for people of color at Loyola Marymount University. Gabrielle Jackson is dedicated to work that centers and redefines Black narratives and creates equitable artistic expression for all. The Los Angeles based actress, singer, poet, and activist is the founder and director of the Joy Jackson Initiative, a nonprofit organization creating actionable tools to build systemic equity in the arts. Notable credits include Disney's Tale of the Lion King, The Color Purple, Parade, Aida, and Once on This Island. In addition, Gabrielle writes and produces her own children's show called Hey Miss Gabby, which fosters anti-racism in young kids through fun, accessible characters. Wunmi Forowa is a proud Nigerian-American, Brooklyn-born actress who is the owner of AMO Organizing Solutions, LLC, and Black HMU United, a public forum for those invested in the education of Black hair and makeup practices nationwide. After leaving NYU Tisch School of the Arts, Wunmi has been featured in a number of plays, cabarets, TV shows, indie films, web series, commercials, print ads, voiceovers, and has hosted in world-renowned venues such as Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center. Notably, she was the lead in the national tour of Freedom Train and has gone on to produce web series and critically acclaimed film productions. Wunmi is also an Eastern Principal Delegate for the Actors Equity Association and a member of the Black Theater Caucus. We are excited to welcome back to the Receipts Mandy Jojan Zendrai and Kyla Carter of Black Theater Girl Magic, a nonprofit striving to create a radically just and more equitable entertainment industry for Black and brown women. Mandy Jo is an actor, singer, writer, and family-oriented person whose performance career includes working for companies like the Bangkok Opera, Walt Disney World, Universal Studios Japan, Norwegian Cruise Lines, Princess Cruise Lines, Holland America, and more. Mandy Jo created Black Theater Girl Magic in 2017, which has rapidly grown into a grassroots organization that currently embraces over 1.6 thousand active and engaged members. Their work centers advocacy and policy change for a more radically just, equitable, and accessible arts industry. Kyla is a gifted and sought-after performing and teaching artist who has graced several regional and international theater stages. She found her initial home as an actress ambassador at Cultural Fusion Theater Company, an organization committed to producing works by and for African American and Latinx playwrights, actors, and actresses. Kyla has a heart and a passion for making the arts accessible and equitable, and she brings this passion to her role as the managing director of Black Theater Girl Magic. Davon welcomes this distinguished panel of Black women to provide the receipts on how they have helped pave the way for a better industry.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Hi.
All right. How's everybody doing today?
Doing
Good.
good.
All right. First off, I want to thank you all. I want to thank you for being here. I also want to let you know that I wrote no questions. I have the slides. I have everything else. But when I saw the panel, I was like, we good. So first things first, I'm going to start with you, Gabrielle, just because you're right next to me. Can you tell everyone about the Joy Jackson Initiative? Once you're done, Wunmi, I would love for you to talk to everyone about Black Hair and Makeup United. Of course, Mandy Jo, I would love for you to talk about Black Theater Girl Magic. And James, I would love for you to talk about intimacy coordinators of color, and then Miss Kyla Carter, you can just round it up. And you know what? Because there's two of you from Black Theater Girl Magic, I know you so well that I'm just going to say whatever comes to your mind. You'll probably be the one to kick this ball off. So let's start right now.
Awesome. Well, I'm Gabrielle Jackson. I'm the founder and executive director of the Joy Jackson Initiative. I just want to also take a moment to make a statement of solidarity with the Asian American and Asian community right now. The brutal shooting of 8 folks in Atlanta, even now, it's just unimaginable. The effects that white supremacy has on America, and it doesn't stop at anti-Blackness. It doesn't stop at Indigenous erasure. It doesn't stop with us at all. It's rooted deeply and affects all members of our community. And unless we do the work of uprooting white supremacy, nothing is going to change, and we're going to continue to have a moment where someone is next. So I just wanted to make a statement of solidarity to start. And I will say that the Joy Jackson Initiative is making that effort in the theatrical space to uproot white supremacy at its core and continue the work of building a theater space that is the safest possible space for people of color and everyone else who has ever been marginalized. We do this through creating teaching tools. On our website, you can find the Joy Jackson Initiative glossary. You can find the Joy Jackson Initiative timeline. Takes you through some of the more notable events in theater. And also on our website, you can find more information about our assessment, which is our crown jewel. It's a tool that is a self-assessment. Thank you, Kyla. I see you over there. It's a self-assessment tool that was created in partnership with Black Theater Girl Magic, actually. So thank you all for helping. But we essentially had a few days of summits for people to come together and talk about their experiences in theater. So this assessment is based in personal experience, fortified by the demands of the community and backed by data. And we're using that data to help create the safest possible theater spaces we can.
All right, Wumi.
Hey, can everyone hear me all right?
You're a little faint. You're a little faint, but
All right, I'll be vociferous. Hey, y'all. I'm just so elated to be here. It's such a glorious day. And Davon, just thanks for having every single one of us. I respect every single one of these ladies here. So just thank you for kind of curating a space for all of us to kind of come together and talk about all the amazing stuff we're doing. So Black HMU United was an organization formed out of necessity. We have an industry that unfortunately does not know about a lot of the extra barriers and safety concerns Black performers have to go through. Unfortunately, for those who don't know, Black HMU United was curated because unions were not knowing that Black performers were having hair loss and being victims of wage theft. We as Black performers often have to do our own hair and makeup in various circumstances because the people who they've employed, they meaning producers on shows, whether it be for theater or for film or TV sets, commercials, anything that is entertainment, Black performers have not been receiving the credit for their expertise and their work. And unfortunately, for those who claimed to have known how to advocate and do the job, they haven't been. There's been a mass majority that haven't been, even though they've been maybe even enthusiastic, has led to hair lesions and hair loss, and it's a safety concern. So essentially what we wanted to do was leave no room for producers and directors to say, well, we don't know anyone who knows how to do all types of hair. It's a database, it's a registry where we have vetted hair care and makeup professionals who know what they're doing. It's not just for certain groups of people. If you can do Afro-textured hair, you're already fluent in Eurocentric hair. So those people are exceptional. We're just making sure that we've done our due diligence as a community to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe and not victims of wage theft. So that's what HMU Unite is all about, and it's one part of having a national database, but then there's also a Facebook community that will be curated to, offer educational resources, everyday resources for the average actor trying to step it up for a self-tape, or just someone who just wants to learn more about Black hair and Black skin. So I'm really excited about that community as well. And yeah, that's what that's about.
Mandy Jo.
Wow, we have to get that resource available on our website, by the way. It has to happen, because I'm so thrilled. From a personal standpoint, cannot tell you how much makeup of my own personal use I have taken on set with me, because I walk in and the hair and makeup designer goes, "I don't have a color that matches you. I'm so sorry." And I end up doing all of my own hair and makeup. And that's not an expense that my non-Black actors share. So yeah, so glad that you're here. As you mentioned, I'm Mandy Jo. I created Black Theater Girl Magic out of the need for community, out of a need for resources, out of a need for fellowship. I would sit in these dressing rooms and be the only woman of color cast in a show throughout my career. And I would watch these women commune with each other in a way that I could not connect with them. I would watch these women give each other resources, tell each other about auditions, tell each other, "Oh my gosh, you should sing this song. You should sing that song. Here's my headshot photographer. He's great." And I realized we're never awarded that level of community unless we're in an all Black show, which, as an actor, statistically speak, like I maybe one a year, like those opportunities over the span of a career are so far and few between. And so I said, I'm not doing that with y'all anymore. I'm going to create what started as a Facebook group, and I'm going to add every Black woman in entertainment that I know, and I'm going to let them add every Black woman in entertainment that they know, and we'll share experiences, we will commiserate, we will lift each other up, we will share our resources, we will help women. Because I also, living in the Central Florida area, know so many incredible talents and performers who never knew that they could do this for a living. No one ever told these Black women, "Hey, you not only are you talented, but you could do this for a living. This isn't just something that if this is what drives you, if this is what you want to do with your life, you can do this with your life. And here's how you get into this business." And so Black Theater Girl Magic started as a support group, as a resource, as a networking opportunity. And several of our members over the years went from being, weekend actors to full-time professional careers in the art form, because of the resources that we were able to share within that organization. And at a certain point, particularly after the murder of George Floyd and the conversations that started to kick up, but even before then, I had this creeping feeling that we were creating this community and putting women in these scenarios in which they could be marginalized, in which, in a predominantly white theater institution, they could be subject to trauma. They could be made to feel like their voice was not important. After we had done all of this building up and putting them in the right place to be in the room where it happens, and then just having them shrunken and marginalized and pushed right on out. And I thought, I'm not doing any Black women any good by getting them in the room, helping them book the job, helping them figure out what they want to do as far as their craft, if I'm not creating a safer space, if this organization does not throw its weight around to creating a safer theatrical and performing community, a more equitable and racially just space. Otherwise, we're doing this for nothing. So in the past, I would say 16 to 18 months, we have shifted more towards advocacy the networking and that community still exists, but the organization's not just focusing its efforts on education and resources. Now we're focusing on advocacy and these conversations and working with organizations and uplifting other Black women-led platforms that are doing this work. That's what BTGM is about.
That's fierce. All right, thank you, Mandy Jo. And feel free to take yourself off mute. And first, let people know where you are and how and because of where you are, how fortunate I feel that you would give this time, and then tell us everything else.
Hi, everybody. Hello, goddesses. It is so good to be in this room. Um, my name is Anne, and I am actually on set for a TV series right now, where I'm serving as intimacy coordinator. So you see my mask here. I hope I don't get in trouble for doing this, and if I have to dash off, it's because I have to go do my job. But yeah, my company is called Intimacy Coordinators of Color, and my whole uh, passion is about creating more leaders of intimacy coordination and intimacy direction, which is for the stage, into this very white space. Because I feel like Black actors, Black performers, Black designers need to be considered when we're talking about stories not only of sexual intimacy, but also racial intimacy, cultural intimacy, intimacy with the aged, and also people with disabilities deserve their work to be cared for as well. And so that's why I'm in the game. And I look forward to moving deeper into conversation with you. But if I have to turn my camera off and jet off, it's because I'm doing my job and doing the work that it takes on an all white show, I might add. Okay.
All right.
So just because I'm a Black woman, it doesn't mean that I can't work on your shows and my shows. Okay.
Go off.
Okay.
Go off.
Professional.
All right. Kyla Carter, come on. End these intros for us.
I mean, first of all, like hearing Anne say that and then hearing we had a talk back at a production of Raisin in the Sun where a Black woman director was just like, well, I've always been here. I've always known what I was doing. You were the one who didn't know. And so hearing you say that just really encapsulates everything that, you know, all of the work that I think all of the women on this panel are about, all of our advocacy, all of like just even our existence, the way that we move through and navigate the world and the spaces that we're in. We're all about it. Mandy Jo, I too have been traumatized by a hair and makeup department of a major corporation, by the way. It was bad. Just, you know, so I share in that with you when Gabby, we go back to all of the workshops. So I just wanted to say, to build on what Mandy Jo was saying about Black Theater Girl Magic and everything that we're doing, it's all about, you know, just creating that space, eliminating those barriers, because those barriers, those walls, they're arbitrary. They're not about talent. They're not about the so-called meritocracy that, you know, a lot of people would have you to believe that that's the way that they operate. They're completely arbitrary barriers that keep marginalized people on the margins. And so I'm so grateful for all of this panel and just is specifically the work that I've been able to do with Black Theater Girl Magic. And I'd also like to stand with you, Gabby, in that statement of solidarity that you made towards the Asian community, because like someone said in the comments, a threat to justice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. And so, or an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I have that backwards. Sorry, MLK. But it is just, it's so true. We have to stay vigilant and we have to have each other's backs all throughout all of this, because ending white supremacy and ending anti-POC, anti-Black, just anti-minority sentiments, whether that's transphobia, homophobia, any of it all has to go. It's all harmful. It's all violent. It's all dangerous. And that's why I think each of our organizations exists. And I love that we've all been able to coalesce and work with each other, even throughout the process of the last couple of months. So that still tells you nothing about me. I'm the managing director of Black Theater Girl Magic.
I've been friends with Mandy Jo for a very long time.
A little longer than I care to admit.
Right. We're not going to talk about that. We've been friends for a very long time. And so I am so grateful to be able to share in this work. Also want to shout out, give a native land acknowledgement. I'm in the ancestral homeland of the Seminole people. So we always want to just make sure to be deliberate about everybody who this industry, this world has left behind because of white supremacy. And that's really what we're about. I think we all share in that. And I think I love and appreciate Black Theater Girl Magic's role in that. And my friendship and work relationship with Mandy Jo really forces me to be about that and walk that talk too, just not even in my advocacy life, but in my everyday life. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm thankful for, like I said, everyone on this panel who has similarly pushed me in that. So, and thank you to you, Davon, for creating this platform and for giving us the space to speak about these very real things that we've experienced, that we have dealt with, that we want to make more just and to create a more just and more equitable space.
Thank you, Kyla. It's back. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for that introduction. I wanted to make sure we got that because what I would like to do is have this panel and I would like to go there. What I also love is that we have Anne here on set doing her job where she is going to check in every night. Yo, we are pulling stunts today because it's all about the sisterhood. But before we get into it, I want to admit something. The Black Theater Matters Bill was created by surveying, talking to, and really extracting ideas and stories from over 500 people. A large majority of them were BIPOC. Every single person you see on this screen had a hand in some way in developing it. More specifically, could I get the one pager? Here we have 12 articles that we are going to send, kind of like the 12 disciples, stories that we're sending to the Actors Equity Association. All of these are linked together to create a more equitable space. Today, I want to focus on, right now, I want to focus on Article 5, which is considered the equity spectrums. We could take it down. Gabrielle, you created the Joy Jackson Initiative. You told us why you've created the Joy Jackson Initiative, but I want to dive into the power of data. Could I get Joy Jackson 1A? So here we have the Joy Jackson Initiative, building systematic equity in the arts. Gabrielle, what does that mean?
Building systemic equity in the arts is all what Joy Jackson's mission is all about. You know, we were founded on disrupting old models of work for arts organizations in the US and beyond. And we are doing that work through creating this assessment and having people look at their data, data is irrefutable, you know? And when you're faced with it and faced with what your organization actually looks and feels like for people of color inside of it, I think that really changes things. So for us, it means using our primary tool, which is based on the personal testimonies of over 100 BIPOC professionals and practitioners, ranging from like students to Broadway professionals, and creating a resource for people to be able to actually look and see if their organization is equitable by quantifying things like company culture and the culture of tours, the culture of shows, the culture that they're creating within their organizations.
Something I find very interesting is when this idea is presented, we have this issue at Actors Equity where the counselors like to be the producers. They like to present the issues that the producers are going to say. The producers and the theaters, why would they say yes to this? Why would they want to admit to that? Gabrielle, what has your experience been presenting the Joy Jackson Initiative to theaters?
My experience has actually been the exact opposite. Usually we're coming into, well, I won't say the exact opposite because we have met a lot of opposition. I won't say the exact opposite because it's been a rough road, okay? But what we've run into is people who are desperate to be doing the right thing, desperate to be continuing on, but literally have no idea where to start or what to do. And so essentially, one of the people that took the assessment said something like, every single question is a bylaw, right? And these questions are things like, do you have people on staff who know how to do black hair, right? And black and makeup for darker skin tones. And also things like, do you have policies in place that actually protect the actors and the folks that you're hiring, right? And so for us, the experience has been with producers, people and people who are in arts leadership positions like artistic directors, managing directors, all of those folks coming into us and being like, we don't know where to start. We don't know what to do, but we desperately want to protect the people inside of our organizations from what we are often just now finding out has been happening. I think we've all kind of said on this panel in some way or another that, the murder of George Floyd and the murders of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Tony McDade really sparked something in us, right? And so, what was sparked in me was the being upset with the silence that was happening around the community. And a lot of that silence, as I've now transitioned into having to become an ally to other BIPOC folks, right? A lot of that silence, I imagine, comes from a fear, right? Being frozen, stuck, those fight or flight responses. So I wanted to give people a place to start. And I think a lot of people, you asked about my experience, a lot of people have been super excited to have that place to start and really appalled. At the end of the assessment, my favorite story to tell is one of the producers came to our office hours last beta round and was like, am I using my daughter's need to eat as a means to continue my position in white supremacy? And should I quit my job? And it was like, okay, so the assessment is working. It's doing what it's meant to do. But yeah, it's clear, the efficacy is clear. And, we've been able to have panels of people. Thank you to Black Theater Girl Magic, who's been really supportive in this work. And Ann James as well has been on phone call after phone call with me. Can I do it? Can I do it? It's important, though, to note that the people who are taking the assessment are getting more than just me and my voice, are getting the voices of our community, the voices of We See You White American Theater, the voices of the Bay Area Theater Action Plan. This is a really well-made tool. And so it's an effective tool as well. So that's been my experience, just having people super excited to come and take it and super excited to have a place to start, finding out that starting place is not the ending place and not the goal to be done with things. I think a lot of people take the assessment and are like, oh, we'll figure out some things.
Solved it.
Exactly. Solved it, done. Because people are looking for a quick fix, right?
Oh,
but
man.
They're always appalled. They come in and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know we were so racist, essentially. A lot of it.
Call it what it is. So let's break this down. And I want to break it down. We're going to go straight into, and because I know we're going to get you. Let's go to 1B of the Joy Jackson. All right, here we go. Gabby, what are we looking at?
We're looking at the compensation of production team members across the organizations who took our last beta assessment. This has been pretty uniform across betas. So far, we've had 2, and we're moving into our last phase before the public is able to take this assessment. But this second beta, you're looking at the numbers for who is paying who what on these production teams. You're seeing that $104,928 was paid to white production team members, while $0 went to Indigenous folks because 0 Indigenous folks were hired as production team members across these organizations. you're looking at $6,040. In comparison to the $100,000 that were paid to white people, you're seeing $6,040 paid to Black people. And BIPOC folks on the whole that were not Black were paid $4,729.
Can you break down the pool? How many people were, how many companies were surveyed?
Yeah, so this last survey is 10. We've had over 30 companies take the assessment so far, but this last pool was over 10 organizations. And 10 organizations found $100,000. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Kyla and Mandy.
I don't know what receipts Davon's going to throw up next, but when looking at this particular number, it's always so stark to me because I think in our heads, right, we look at that number and we go, oh, they're not hiring a lot of Black and POC designers or technical staff, right? It's not just that. It's twofold.
Four.
Right? It's twofold because it's not just that you're not hiring those people of color. If you look at the follow-up to that data, which is the percentage of dollars that go to each white staff member versus the percent of dollars that goes to each, they're grossly underpaid.
Yes.
So it's a double whammy there. It's one, they're not hiring enough people of color to be proportionately representative of their communities. And two, the people of color that they do hire are often getting 50% less in terms of not just pay, but if they're hiring a white staff member that is on full-time with benefits, they're hiring Black contractors to do a bulk of the work in which they are not receiving any additional compensation, and they are gig workers, and gig workers get paid less in general. So when you look at that data, I always have to remind myself of that second piece of data. And maybe you were going to show it, maybe you weren't. But
oh yes, let me set you up for success. May I get number 2?
Thank you.
So I would also like to piggyback on what Mandy Jo was saying, and we often call each other the other half of the other's brain. And what's so funny about like coming out of that data, coming out of your statement and into this one is that despite the perceived and the touting of how progressive the entertainment and the arts is, that number looks strikingly similar to the national average wealth gap between white people and Black people and other people of color and indigenous people. Like, it's almost identical.
It's a continuation. It's right.
And art imitates life.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I never want to. I feel like a lot of people have an impression about what theater needs to do in order to be equitable. And the first thing that they say is hire more Black people. It's not just that we're being hired, but we are being abused.
Yep.
We are experiencing wage disparity. We're experiencing a lack of offering of any kind of financial stability in terms of gig work versus professional development. So it's not just hire more Black and brown people. You're hiring them, you're not investing in them. And that's the difference. That's the important data there.
Because that gets continued on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think back to what Viola Davis said about, you think I'm the Black male street, right? Then pay me her, like what she's getting.
And pay me
like literally.
Then pay me.
I mean, she's EGOT. She has all these, like, I think she broke another record recently.
She did. She got 4 Oscars, or her 4th Oscar. Yeah.
And it's just like, well, and it's all those things that, like, should we be looking at the top of the top? Yes, we need to be looking at the top of the top and the lowest of the lowest, in terms of who gets exploited. It's all exploitation. All exploitation is wrong. So I think until we look at who is the most vulnerable and how do we serve the most vulnerable, you will never be equitable.
And to break this down before we go into the next slide, just for perspective, for anyone being like, but it's theater, it's the art, where's the money at? Before the pandemic, it was over 877 billion. For perspective, that's 4.5 of the GDP. That's more than transportation. You know, that thing, that bus you drive and everything of the like. It was more than farming. You know, that food that you love, that you order from Amazon that you're not supposed to be doing. That is what we are completely eating. But when you really break those numbers, 877 billion is kind of low, because in any area, when you put in a theater or any type of art space, the community thrives. We're going to get more into that near the ending of the season, but so I'm just going to set you up for that. But what's important is parking lots, restaurants, and everything around it thrives. We build communities around the arts. Can I get slide 5? Gabby, what are we seeing?
We're seeing the percentage of folks who are directing classical works here. You see that there's a much larger percentage of white folks and non-Black BIPOC folks. But there are no Black or Indigenous directors of classical works across the organizations that took the assessment.
All right, can we get the next slide? What are we seeing here?
We're seeing that they know where these people are. We're seeing that they know where Black directors exist. But they only call them for Black History Month. That's what we're seeing there.
If they call them.
Drag them. Because they're still, well, it is. Well, it's a self-drag, but a drag nonetheless. Because, you know, we're still in the year of our Lord 2021 having Ain't Misbehaving directed by white men. Like,
you know, Once on This Island directed by white men. You know, there's...
And music directed too. Like I mean, if we really...
The numbers for music direction, there's not enough time in a day to show you all the data, but the numbers for music direction are even more appalling, to be honest. It's wild. But when we see these numbers, right, when we're looking at these graphs, it's like, oh my goodness, they just, like when you're looking at the classical works graph, it's easy to be like, oh, they just don't know where to find Black and BIPOC directors. Like, clearly this is a thing. Like, but then you look at these BIPOC works and you're like, oh no, when they feel like they have to, they can find somebody. It's just that they don't feel like they have to for classical works, because those works are white works. Those are part of the white canon, which I'm realizing that the word American to a lot of people means white. I didn't know that for a long time. I was like, oh, American, we're all American. I'm American too. But sometimes American just means white. And when we're talking about the American theater canon, we're talking about the white theater canon.
And I think it was Toni Morrison that said that a while back, that American means white and everyone else has to hyphenate. And when you think about our experiences,
yeah.
When you think about how we identify ourselves, like it's literally that.
You know, I've been very, very lucky to know what I want to do with my life and be in the theater space since I was very young. I was very, very lucky in that. And I had a lot of resources. I had a lot of proximity to whiteness, and I had a lot of access. But one of the things that I was distinctly, from the beginning of my career, even in an educational setting, I was interested in directing. I was directing pieces, you know, long before I decided to act in any. And one of the shows I wanted to direct was a truncated Broadway, like a Broadway, like parody show of all Shakespearean works called All the World's a Stage. And so it's like all of the highlights of every Shakespeare show, but done in a very comedic way. And when I presented my proposal for this, because you had to present proposals for this, the teacher that was responsible for signing off would not sign off. I had to go to a different teacher because she's like, don't you want to do something else instead? Like maybe, oh, you could do Smokey Joe's Cafe, or you could do this. And I was like, no, I want to do this Shakespeare parody show. So even that, like, I wasn't just not being given the chance to do it. I was being actively diverted away from materials that I wanted to do because they were perceived as not for me.
Yeah. Right. And so the issue is that it's not even that there's not an availability even of Black directors, is that we just, and I'm reading the comments, it's just, we see you, we hear you, we are just purposely ignoring you.
Yep.
And that's deliberate. Like, that's a deliberate ignoring of a black person a black woman at that, like, and black women are largely underrepresented off stage and behind the scenes when it comes to theater. But that is the deliberate ignorance of a black woman who is coming to you saying, hey, I want to do this. Like, and not even like in a tokenized, like, let me be your black woman, but like, I want to do this. And to be turned away. And then for them, it's insult to injury for these same people who will turn around and say, "Oh, well, we don't know any black directors."
But where are they?
And what did you say, Gabby? If you don't know one,
grow one. Okay,
come on.
Yeah, okay. My whole thing is that it's a whole notion of trust and mistrust, right? Because it's essentially saying that, okay, when it comes to your work, you do what you want to do because that's your people. I think, okay, your experience. And then essentially, telling white bodies what to do in space by a person of color. This is something psychologically I think people have a lot of resistance with, and that's one part. But then there's a whole part of just like, well, these are our precious works. You're going to bastardize it in some type of way or put your own slang and things.
Ghettoize it.
Essentially, right? And it's just like this presumption of like they've already played out in their head what they think your capabilities as a creative can do, and they already don't want it. Yep. And I think that's really a lot of what that is just making the presumptions and the stereotypes just really just play out in our everyday lives. And it's really saddening because it's just, if they only just gave people the chance, and it's so funny because we know as people of color, we don't get many. So it's not like we're trying to jack it up. Like when we come in,
Right.
So,
and we also don't have the same benefit of failure as a lot of white directors do.
No.
We can, if we mess up, then we've messed up for everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas the dude who wrote the season 8 and series finale of Dexter is still working writing jobs. Like,
still doing
make it make sense.
I'm out of here.
Can we talk about how the people at Game of Thrones still keep getting greenlit for show after show after show?
Here they
after
are.
What they did to that last season,
and a concept that we don't need. A what if the Confederacy won concept? Like, who needs that?
No,
certainly not black people.
No.
Yeah, that was supposed to be their next project after they butchered the end of Game of Thrones. What if the Confederacy won?
But let's be honest, right? These like white supremacist, like fever dream narratives have been perpetuated from the beginning of the American theater, which is American entertainment. Before we had television, before we had movies, before we had anything, we had American theater, right? And American theater is founded on what? Blackface minstrelsy.
Ooh!
So this white supremacist fever dream has been this is a continuation of a rich history that is deeply rooted in anti-blackness, deeply rooted in indigenous erasure, because blackface is based upon red face, which it comes to us from England. So like this is not new. This is not something that someone just invented. It's a legacy. Just like black people have a legacy of greatness, and some white people also have a legacy of, allyship, right? There's also white supremacy as a legacy as well that is left behind intentionally for the ancestry of white supremacy to build upon, right? Because we have redlining in our everyday waking lives. We have transportation systems running through predominantly black and brown neighborhoods. And we have pollution deeply rooted inside of black and brown neighborhoods. We have in South Central LA right now, they're shutting down a Ralph's store because who cares about the black people who live in South Central LA? But South Central LA is a food desert. And that Ralph's, I've been to that Ralph's. I used to shop at that Ralph's with my ex-boyfriend. It's the only Ralph's around that area. It's the only fresh food store around that area. They've got a Big Lots down there. They've got other things. But what I'm saying is like,
And not to mention school funding,
School
which
funding?
directly relates to like arts representation and accessibility
That.
for kids who looks like me, and I meant to say this in my intro, I'm actually one of the people who transitioned out of corporate life into theater within the last 5 years directly because of Black Theater Girl Magic and the work that they did to provide resources. But I literally did not have those programs in that same way. I went to school out of zone to be in an orchestra. And then when I could no longer get there, then I had to quit playing an instrument that I loved playing.
Right.
Because my family couldn't afford private lessons. And so and I was getting them for free through that school.
Right.
And so
Kyla, can I sneak in really quick?
Sure.
I want to take a quick poll just to get a little bit of a reference. All of us that are on the screen right now, who has worked as a teaching artist or have witnessed the work of it or have benefited from the work of a teaching artist? Now that we know that, when it comes to teaching artists' work, how many of those people that you met were BIPOC? Like a good amount?
I'm the only Black, I'm one of 2 Black teaching artists in my program right now.
Now, how often do we see those teaching artists going into Black communities? So here's my question. Putting that under the union, knowing that under the cost per child in places like Philadelphia, where majority of the contracts go to these Black schools because, they're helping the marginalized when they do this. Should that work be under the union so that we could track it just like the Joey Jackson does? Should we be protecting and making sure that we increase those numbers and actually putting it towards the grants and holding these theaters accountable?
Quite frankly, I'm very disappointed and surprised when I learned that teaching artists were offered no protection under equity whatsoever. Considering that teaching artists are usually the faucet by which most of us receive our theater knowledge and our theater training. Every teacher that I had was a performing artist. Every single one of them. I've often, as a member of the Actors Union, I have often been discouraged by the fact that teaching artists are not protected under the same auspices as the people who are on a stage for an audience. If you're on a stage for your students, I feel like you should,
Thank you.
Why aren't teaching artists being protected?
Now, let me be crystal clear.
Why are their livelihoods
We did not talk or meet or anything prior, right? This is the first the 6 of us are on this screen, right?
Yes.
This has been consistent. Go, Gabby.
This is a concept that I didn't even think of as as a thing that could be possible, right? Like for a teaching artist to be underneath the equity union, I didn't even consider that was something that was, and hearing it now, I'm like, yeah, that's wild. Actually, that's wild that we're not protected.
I mean, in any other
because that's
union,
also how I supplemented my income in during the pandemic was through teach. And I'd been teaching before, but I had taken on a great deal more students than I had previously. Also working in Title I schools or working with students from Title I schools. So in a lot of cases, I'm the only Black face they're seeing as far as adults and tutelage, and they're being on the people who are educating them. I am one out of a sea of many.
Now that we're talking about this and getting to the intimacy, and I'm about to set you up really quick because I got you. Can I get ID 3? Can I get 3? Intimacy coordinators of color. Your mission is so interesting to me. It's what I go up for. Here it is. Intimacy coordinators of color will support and promote decolonized intimacy. I'm going to read that again because that's the part that got me. Promote decolonized intimacy, education, and inclusive hiring practice in the entertainment industry. We could take it down and break it down for us.
Yeah, because consistently in the theater and in television and film, it's often Black people or people of color whose trauma is being celebrated and almost, in a pornographic way for white audiences. Oh, look at what happened to them. Look at what happened, or we can assuage our guilt by watching this Black person or this person of color go through this traumatic experience. And so who is looking out specifically for people of color in this space? No one. And specifically when we're talking about intimate situations, when we're talking about Black bodies and Black skin moving together, this is something that white audiences never see. We see it, we know it, we experience it. But in order for us to have actors protected in scenes and in creative spaces while this blocking, while this choreography, while this narrative is being shared to a wider audience, I feel that people of color need to be in the room to stand for these actors and to stand for the process and to give space and time for these stories to unfold. For instance, I'll give you a scenario that's happening now with all of the police brutality that has been put upon us and all of the essential workers during this pandemic. Those stories are being written and starting to be told now. Well, who's going to give that person who may have actually been in a protest the protection when they're acting as a character who is in a protest? There are things that we do. Black people can give one another a look and we know that something's not right. And so if I'm looking into the eyes of a white intimacy coordinator when I've had enough, are they going to pick up on those cues?
Right.
I don't think it will be the same communication, simply because we've had to communicate silently for centuries. And so when we're in these creative spaces telling our stories, we can take a breath on that.
Yeah.
We've told our stories in silence for centuries. And so when we want to commodify our stories and commercialize our stories, I think it's really important that there is someone there holding space for the actors to do so enthusiastically and with their psyches and bodies intact, which is not the case right now. So I started this company to help promote the decolonization of the field. Not only the decolonization and the celebration of stories of Black excellence and Black joy, which we all know about and have learned about, but to also be in the room where oftentimes actors of color are not protected and they're asked to work well beyond what is fair and what is well beyond psychologically possible.
Thank you. And
Amen.
how's the set? How's work been?
Working great. I'm about to start.
I just wanted to make sure we caught you because I knew as soon as we got you for that second. So for everyone watching, there's this new app called Clubhouse. Ann and I are going to continue this. This is going to happen. We're going to set the date. It's going to happen. And we need to break this down. If y'all are free, we just going to do this talk 2.0 because I feel like these are the breakthroughs. These are the moments.
I'd also like to shameless plug. Ann is going to be appearing, with Black Theater Girl Magic through our Ask Me Anything series on the 31st of this month, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. So if you want to hear more of Ann, because I know I do, because she is dropping gems. Like she just comes back in and just snatches it, clears it. So if you want to hear more, if you want to, lose your edges, lose your wigs, your eyebrows, all of it, join us. With Black Theater Girl Magic, 6 p.m., March 31st. Shameless plug for our Ask Me Anything series.
I love it. And with that, I'm going to
just say one more thing.
Absolutely.
I just want to say one more thing before I have to go because this is a treasure. This is a treasure. You are the gems. Really, really. I need to look at these Black women and say, thank you for being in this space. And I appreciate you. I see you. I hear you. I want to have a kiki soon with all of you. And Davon, thank you so much. You King, you doing it. You doing it all over the place. All right, I got to go. But yeah, get at me and I'll see you all later.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you, Ann.
We love you.
I got us.
And with that, I would like to summon, can I get our ancestors?
Our ancestors would place rice, seeds, and sometimes gold on the scalp between two sections of hair. They did this so that if they were captured and forced to voyage across the Atlantic, they'd at least have a small amount of food for sustenance. The technique was also used if they were planning a brave escape. Seeds and gold could help them build their new life.
Finding out that people hid food in hair was really a shock to me, but I also wasn't surprised because I don't think there's a style that is more meaningful than braiding. It's been used for so many reasons throughout African history. It makes the style even more meaningful, even more powerful, gives me even more of a reason to wear braids proudly.
How do we get, I believe the saying is pearls before swine. How do you get a pig to see a pearl?
Let him choke on it.
Oh.
I'm going to let
Honestly,
that sit.
I mean, I know I'm the one who gets us in trouble.
All the time.
But you know what? Honestly, your first instinct is often, it's often the right one, friend. I gotta say, it's so powerful to like really look at how far and how degraded the original intention of our culture has come, and how, when we talk about appropriation, a lot of people who are not us, and sometimes people who look like us, roll their eyes when we talk about appropriation. But to see that this practice was born out of a need for survival and an ingenuity and just a full understanding of what was happening to them at that time, and turned into boxer braids in Cosmo magazine for the consumption of the people who have actively benefited on the backs of Black bodies. It just, sometimes I like you said, let them choke on it is the appropriate response, because how on earth do you make someone see that? How on earth do you make someone see that?
This is what I found very interesting, and I'm going to relate this to the Actors Equity Association and right now our convention and a lot of the proposals. What I found is more often than not, if the person who submitted it was white, if they wanted something that they wanted, the first thing they would say, and this is the new thing, this is the new form of appropriation, BIPOC, but BIPOC. Give it to me because BIPOC. And it's like, but that's not your intention. You want this for yourself. You want this for yourself, and you're putting BIPOC in front of it so that you can use these bodies to achieve your goal. And I think about that from hair and how that has evolved into the culture of, if I want something, then I want to give you the stage. But as soon as I no longer need you, it's back to what we need. How do we get into that? How do we break that up?
I mean, I think we saw a lot of that I think we're even seeing it again now during this time, right? This rush to say the right thing or do the right thing or be an ally. We saw that during the summer last year with all the Black Square allies who were showing up to protests with their friends with cameras and only coming for like the first half of it, but then, or instigating violence and then leaving when things get dicey, right? Like
or when it came time to hear Black people speaking, they were out.
Or when it came time to actually hear Black people speaking. And I was kind of, journaling a little bit about this last night. And I was so frustrated with everyone last summer for not knowing and understanding the fullness of the history, right? The fullness of what goes behind this, that this is not new. And I was also so frustrated too with the fact that like people couldn't be bothered to hear folks out. And I think that the way that we can move forward is by creating our own tables. I love I love the fact that all of the women on this panel have created a table for themselves to sit at, and then opened up the leaves of the table and said, you come sit too, right? And so I think a lot of our work, or a lot of my work, I'll speak for myself, a lot of my work specifically was see me, hear me, you know, understand me, fix this world for me, which that's white people's problem and they need to fix it. Racism is a white problem and white people need to fix it, because my blackness is not an issue. The heaviness that your racism places on it is an issue though. However, what I think we can do is look at each other and say, all right, you know what? F that table. That table looks janky as hell, first and foremost. That table looks like it's got a squeaky leg, and the seats will not hold me. They will not hold my fullness. So I'm going to go sit over here where the seats have been intentionally built for me. I'm going to go sit over here where the seats have been, or where the table was made with me in mind. I'm going to go sit over here. And if you want to come over here, you're going to have to rebuild your table.
And I'd like to just kind of point out, Gabby, where you said, fix this for me. I remember the early stages of our conversations about the Joy Jackson initiative and how your little sister is in that logo with you, and how you're not just doing this for you, you're doing it for her so that hopefully she doesn't have to do this work when she comes of age. Yeah. And I think all of us on some level are doing this not just for ourselves, but white supremacy and the construct of white supremacy and the way that it operates in the spaces that we're existing in is largely individualistic. It's so ruggedly individual, such that, well, if it benefits me, well, I don't care about y'all. And that's the difference. And that's what makes the work that we're doing so real, but also so valuable. Because what Black women do, the work that Black women do, the labor that Black women put in, the seeds that Black women plant, we feed everybody. We always have.
Yeah.
We're looking right now at the seeds of Stacey Abrams have planted, right?
Oh my God, yes.
We're looking right now at the seeds that Stacey Abrams planted. And did she plant them by herself? No, because she opened up space for other Black women to come and sit around her table and said, here's what we're going to do. And when things benefit us, they benefit everybody. That's how we work. That's how we sow. That's how we grow.
I want to talk about the building of another table, and it is done through Black Theater Girl Magic. Can I get Black Theater Girl Magic open letter? What I found when building the Black Theater Matters bill, there were some key things in your open letter that go hand in hand that have been getting pushed back. And I was like, this is really interesting, because I'm suggesting they're saying do now, which is we expect to see more female identifying BIPOC on your board of directors. We expect to see more Black and brown artistic directors, educators, and designers. We expect to see more Black producers, directors, and technicians on your teams. If you produce a work by a playwright of color, we expect to see a non-white person directing it. We expect an inclusive system of human resources and accountability that provides effective leadership when a person of color experiences hostile work situations. And lastly, it goes on, but these are the ones I really want to hit. We expect a zero tolerance policy on racism in the workplace, no matter how small. This is what concerns me a lot with historical votes at Actors Equity. When it comes to discrimination and harassment, they're treated as if they are negotiation tools, which I understand keeping those confidential. But when you say you want to protect the person that is causing harm, what say you?
It's always done under the guise of impartiality, right? Of innocent until proven guilty. It's always done under that guise of, well, we can't just trust you at your word because we're not giving that person a fair shot to speak up for themselves. And so we have to protect them until they can speak for themselves and they can have the opportunity to defend themselves. But the disconnect then lies in the you never ask them to explain.
There's no follow-up. Yeah, and there's usually a documented history of that person of causing harm to copious other people. So
it's almost always a person who has been perpetrating these things, and there is a pattern, and there is almost always a paper trail, but under the guise of impartiality, under the guise of, well, they, especially with a union, not just our union, any union, pick a union. There is this guise of, well, they're a union member too. They deserve our protection just as much as anybody else. But my argument is, if there is an actor who does not represent what the union says is a priority and is important and what we stand for as an organization, why do they then deserve our protection?
Right.
If an actor who is an actors equity actor goes on their Facebook, goes on their social media, goes on national news, goes to a rally and storms the Capitol, perpetrates racism, perpetrates violence with their words, why should the union be obligated to protect them if the union says none of these things are what we stand for? Because
I mean, I think at this point,
they paid into having that card. I think, you know, I cannot speak to this, but I would pay good money to know whether or not that actor that went and stormed the Capitol that we all read about on NPR, I would be interested to know if he's still in our union.
At this point, I think we just go ahead and pass the collection plate around, because that was the sermon, the benediction.
Here we go. This is the last one, and I wanted to spend the last little bit of time actually dealing with this because, again, breathing is a political act. However, all of you on this screen and included in so many Black women on your backs, you have to do the work, like you said, Gabrielle, of fixing a white problem. White people do stuff, we come to the rescue. White people get to mess things up, we build more pyramids for them. Not metaphorical, we built those for ourselves, but we build their skyscrapers. You get where I'm going with that.
We build their White House.
We build, I was trying not to say it, but you're so right. We build their White House. We build their America. Because of this Sharon Osbourne fiasco, Amanda and Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle, Oprah once again affects this show. We have been faced with another question, and I want to pose it like this. Can I get, she don't even go here.
And I'm wondering, why do so many brothers, particularly in this entertainment business, feel the need to lay their coat down across troubled waters to help these white folks who don't give a fuck about us? First of all, it is not the responsibility of Black folks to educate white folks on how they cannot be trash ass folks. Okay? They fucking made up racism. Why the fuck we gotta teach you how to not be racist? To expect us to do that and to, as a Black person, try and rally up folks into that space is, one, just foolish and also not respectful of our time and of our energy. I don't got the time. I'm on my trampoline. And on another level, completely devoid of any consideration for the fact that Cheryl and Holly have been at the brunt of this woman's racist bullshit. So basically, you're asking victims to come and have a nice little sit down with their attacker so that this bitch can feel better? No, we are not on the rehabilitate white people train. That is not what our energy is for. There is no stimulus check for our time. Time is slipping away from me. Yeah. There are real issues going on out here, okay? There is a whole political system and infrastructure based on racism, and y'all got us fucked up if you think that it is of our priority to put any energy, I can't even talk, I'm so irritated, to put any energy into helping save the public character of this British woman. She ain't even from here, okay? You didn't even go here.
We've done all this work. Joy Jackson Initiative, Black Theater Girl Magic, making people full. Kyla is a product of that. Wumi, your hair initiative and the work you are tirelessly doing as a delegate, you're overperforming. Here's the final question. Is it our job to save this union, or should we let it fail?
Yes, it's not our job, but yes, let's save it anyway. And here's why. We have a situation where we can tear it all down. We could literally light it on fire and be like, deuces, because we have every right. We've been literally given every right to do so. However, the time, the energy to now mobilize the thing that we've just brought to ashes, what could we have been doing with that time for ourselves? I think what could be more fruitful, which is I think what a lot of us are doing now, is let's build, our annex. Let's build our addition to the house and make our own shit, but with the intention that if you want to build a door inside to connect and actually bring those, places together, they're there for you. But I'm not going to build it, right? You have to build that door to the addition. I'm literally the addition right now because I'm literally operating under a different stimulus. I'm literally operating on a different stimulus than you are. So if you can't acknowledge that, then my door, or the concrete wall will just stay there. But if you want to go do the work and now dig and now make this door, it's open and available for you. But what it is I'm not going to break down and burn your house just because your intentional job was never to include me. So I'm just going to acknowledge that and let that wash over me. And while I'm building, and if you want to come my way, or if you want me to come your way, just know there are now with new demands, I come your way. If you come my way, just let you know if you're coming to my space, I'm going to check for every damn nuance that you're very sincere about what you're saying and what you're doing. And then that's what it is. I think if you speak up, you say your ingenuity, you rely on your own people, others who want to come and say that they're here to help other Black bodies, check. Do the vetting, check if they're genuine. Because the ones who really would have to do the work, really build that annex door, a lot of them are going to fail. They're going to fail on their own time. I don't even have to do anything. What's the point of me now reaching out? But what I won't do is say fuck you, or sorry, I don't know if we're ever allowed to curse.
But. I mean, Amanda Seals done broke that door open. Go ahead.
Whatever, because it was never created for me. It was never created for me. It was all these white people who were like, yo, this is fun, we got theater. It's like we made this stuff like they're the first orators of life and things. Like, okay, it was never for me. But now that we're here, now that we've been of service for like a century, what you got? And if you don't want to now bridge and do the work to make that bridge, we will make our own, but I think we should caution just like saying you're done forever. Because I think now we're seeing more than ever the people who have been silent, but for the reasons of where do I start? Kind of what Gabrielle said, where do I start? We are actually giving them vessels. We're now giving them tools to actually do the work in a way that if it was curated by white bodies, it would have never been nuanced.
Right.
And now we have the tools to create those nuances.
Right.
All right. Kyla?
Sure. I think it's interesting. That question is so interesting simply because of the, what was it, episode 6 or 7?
Oh, that you were on?
No. Of this season with the historian.
Oh, the Negro Actors Guild, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have to reconcile my feelings about the way that union that represented Black actors and advocated for Black actors and Black performance was dissolved and essentially erased by Actors Equity with the work of saving the union. Which, by the way, I think I'm the only person on this panel who is not a member of the union. And so I don't really have a dog in the fight to that respect, but I also am always in solidarity with the people in my profession and the people that I love and respect and work with day in and day out who have to deal and contend with the frustrations wrought by the union and the lack of protection in situations where they have reported harassment, reported instances of racism, instances of assault, and all of these different things. And the union was essentially toothless in dealing with those things, and failed to protect and to advocate for the people who were paying their hard-earned money, the money that they're working for, back into that union. And for what? Like some decent health care? I mean, I guess. And so I have a hard time reconciling those two things, especially with, me being on the outside. And so take my words with a grain of salt with regards to the union for that reason, if for nothing else. But I think that similar to what, and maybe not, what Wumi was saying is like, I'm not going to burn the house down. Mm-hmm. But I'm also not going to risk my life to keep it from burning down if somebody else sets fire to it.
Kyla, this is the way to ask you before I jump to Mandy Jo. Simple yes or no. Do you look forward right now on this day to getting an invitation to become a member?
I can't say that I do.
Mandy Jo, what are your thoughts? Should we?
I have so many. But I will say that yes, and to everything that the women before me have said about this subject. Should we let it fall into disrepair? Should we let the house burn? I have my own personal advocacy on this subject that I will probably keep to myself at this time. But I will say that the position of Black Theater Girl Magic currently, I owe it. BTGM owes it to its members to acknowledge the work of the Black women that were in this industry before us, and the work of the women who have been tirelessly advocating for each other and for other people of color and for other marginalized people from the time that we were allowed to grace a stage. And so, no, I don't think we are obligated to fix this for predominantly white institutions and for white culture, but BTGM works within this structure despite its flaws and despite its failings, not to benefit any predominantly white institutions and make them better for their own sake. We operate within this framework. We take on this labor, not because we must, but out of honor and respect for the Black and brown women who came before me, and the ones who came before the ones who came before me.
All
and
right,
the ones who will come after me.
Thank you. All right, Gabrielle, with this last minute before I send you all off and then give it over to Maria Cristina Posada Sly. Gabrielle, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this: my sister is going to grow up and she is going to inherit whatever we leave her. And I want to leave her something beautiful. Wherever I step foot, I know that she may step after me, so I am going to continue to fight wherever I'm planted. And as long as the universe and the good Lord keep planting me somewhere, I'm going to step in, I'm going to dig in, and I'm going to continue to do that work. So if it means, making something out of nothing, making something out of ashes, then that's what we're going to do. If it means, separating ourselves from a burning building because we see it going down in flames and it may not have the bones to be built back up again, that's what we're going to do. But whatever she needs me to do, however she needs me to move, that's what I'm thinking about. So,
thank you, ladies. I will not keep any more of your time. We can take them off. I want to thank you sincerely for coming on this. I've waited for this episode for so long because I knew it was going to be real, it was going to be honest, and it was going to be progressive. I cannot wait for other counselors to see this and really have that conversation. Thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
I bid you adieu.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And now we have Delegate Maria Cristina Posada Sly with a Sly comment.
Hey friends, Maria Cristina here, and today we're going to talk about, you guessed it, sexual harassment. So let's get started. Sexual harassment is a form of gender discrimination. Gender discrimination is when a person is treated less well because of their gender. Now, if you're trying to identify whether or not you're experiencing sexual harassment, just ask yourself, is this behavior connected to my gender? Is this behavior offensive or threatening or demeaning or embarrassing or something similar? Sexual desire and attraction is not required for behavior to be sexual harassment. Some comments, even if they're meant as compliments, can be sexual harassment. Sexual harassment does not have to be one-on-one or directed at one person. It can exist in the workplace culture to any group of people. Sexual harassment can occur outside of the workplace, at a work party, while traveling for work, or even in the comfort of your own home, when someone texts non-consented nude photos of company members to other fellow company members. Who would do that? Someone did. Anyways, I'm now going to make a list of everyone who has the right to a harassment-free workplace. Interns, part-time workers, independent contractors, temps, domestic workers, undocumented workers, off-the-books workers, literally everyone. So whether or not you work in the theater industry and you're literally paid to touch each other, you have the right to a harassment-free workplace.
We all have a right to a harassment-free workplace. I think about that line. I think about what this season 2 was all about. We talk about the convention. It's the road to the convention. It's the Black Theater Matters bill and why all of it is important and all this mess. Interviewing 500 people, some being counselors, some being delegates, some being lay members, some being lawyers, some people who used to be on staff, some people who are still on staff at the Actors Equity Association, talking to SAG-AFTRA members, talking to IATSC members, talking to so many people to figure out what's the path forward. We have 12 steps, over 20-something pages. I personally think it's short. A lot of the response I get from people who are now the gatekeepers because their vote matter. Some of the quick things you get is, this is really long. This is really long. 26 pages. 26 pages is really long when someone's been living with this pain for 26 years. I see your privilege. I see what you're really about. If you're not about the work and the service, 26 pages don't mean anything, if I'm being direct and honest. But if you're worried about your status because you can't book enough on your own auditions, or you can't get enough stage management jobs because you can't interview well, then yes, 26 pages is a lot, because that's not what you were really here for. If you're here to run a campaign and build legacy, because again, you can't do it off of your resume and the money you spent at your school, or I don't want to go that far, but if that's what you're here for, your colors are showing. Right now, we really have to break down what it means to serve. What does it mean to serve? Here we have people, Black women, who have come with solutions. I know that there is a resolution regarding intimacy coordinators. And the response that I get, without even people going deep into that one page, half a page, if you really break it up, it's really half a page of a resolution, is that, yeah, we could advocate for that, but what about my paycheck? I don't want anything being taken from me. I want to make the argument of the producer to hide my discrimination. One thing I had to pull from this Black Theater Matters bill is the idea of caregiving. For me, I have to deal with the reality that my grandparents are getting older. My grandparents are getting older. At some point, I will have to take care of the people who went out of their way to take care of me. There's a whole TED Talk about it. That's my reality. That's my part two to that story. And what's scary is when I talk to producers and I go, hey, I know you can't always afford understudies, but can you afford going in and, if something happens to my grandparents, instead of me leaving this contract, losing money, you having to spend more money to get a replacement, here's a plan that I would like Actors Equity to look at, but I know they'd have to negotiate with you. Is this too much? And every single producer going, no. That looks like a very legit concern. I don't even see why I would ask for a concession for that. However, these people who haven't bothered to read an economics book, but they are now serving on council pretending to be economic strategists, turn around and go, fundamentally, that's not possible. That is a lie. Your colors are showing. Tell the truth of what it is. You're not thinking about my grandparents when you hear the word caregiving. You hear the word child. And when you hear the word child and that someone is a parent, you look at them and go, having a child is your choice. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. But what I can say is if someone looks at you and says caregiving is an emergency, as an emergency is something we should think about, and you don't give it a count a day because some woman stood up in a council meeting and yelled about her children, that's not what this is about. It's time for council and now delegates and staff to grow up. It's time to grow up. What you saw on the West Wing is an Aaron Sorkin written fantasy. Grow up. Because on the backs of Black women, you have succeeded. And now you need to say thank you, and you do it through your vote. Not only do you do it through your vote, because most of this is advisory to council, shout out to our lawyer, Susan, it's then the job of council to follow through. It's time to grow up. At this point, there's a petition hitting your door talking about these safety issues. And what I find so funny is that so many of these counselors go, I believe the science. Well, how is it that SAG-AFTRA, that group, that small union that you went to fight with and that they spanked you and showed you that you need to stay in your place, how is it that they were able to use science to get their workers back on those productions? I assume it's the same science. I assume we're all looking at the same data. And before we even start that labored thing of, oh, it's film, TV, it's isolated and things of the like, I would like to take you in these last couple of episodes into the world of what's been happening with theater. I want to talk about The Barter in Virginia, who I've been speaking with, who, because they couldn't put on productions, they had to do their subsidiary company use the safety plan that they submitted multiple times to the Actors Equity Association, only for the Actors Equity Association to tell them multiple times, oh, we haven't really gotten around to reading it. They used that on this non-equity company, and they were able to put on productions and not have one case of COVID. I believe that science because it's also backed up by data. Grow up. Yes, things are hard. You're going to have to do work. That's what this is about. And if you can't do it, resign. If you are not capable, resign. Because if you were this incompetent on your job, and I know because it's happened to some of you, you would have been fired. You would have been fired. And right now, I don't know if you can feel it, but our lay members are coming together. Not only are we coming together, but we're coming together and specifically looking for people to go. Yes, we can point fingers. There's a long history of Actors Equity doing it. That's what season 2 is about. But it's time for people to go. If you can't be accountable. Because essentially that's all we've been asking. I know we're in season 2, episode 10 of this show, and it all happened because a fucking $10,000 donation. I don't want that. What I wanted was for my union to have my back when I was run down by a Mack truck because a theater gave me a faulty bike. I am now serving in governance, and that still hasn't been addressed. But how can I now expect that to be addressed when in season 1, episode 8, I told all of you who listened to that, I know because Kelly Faulkner blocked me because she didn't want to be accountable for it. Hey, Kelly, how you doing? I'm unimpressed. No one who reacted to that episode has yet to deal with the fact that on council, we have someone who sexually assaulted someone. Yet you all want to talk about your campaigns. You want to talk about this. It's time to grow up. Fuck your convention. Fuck this convention if you can't do the simplest thing of trying to aid people. What I found really good about campaigning for this is that some of the delegates who were running, when I talked to one woman who dealt with a disability and things of the like, by the end of that episode, that woman was in her inbox with options and help. That's the person that I want to see on council. That's the person that I want to see doing the work. What I don't want to see are the people who are hiding behind votes, trying to do all this, but are the main ones in the actors' equity pictures, the main ones who want their faces all over the place when it's something good, which clearly there haven't been a lot of pictures this season because we're not doing a lot of good. But that's what this is about. I don't want to see your anger. I don't want to see your back and forth. I don't want to see your political wins that don't matter. I want to see action. You failed me. And what's even sad about it is that had that truck gotten right into that bike and ran me over and I was smeared on that street, you would have had my dues money. You would have had my working dues. But you wouldn't even said my name. Because in your eyes, I'm not big enough. My accomplishments aren't big enough. In the Black Theater Matters bill, all I ask is that you take the names of people who have died and paid money into this union and put them on the social media. I don't care if it's every week. I don't care if it's every day. I don't care if it's every month. I'm saying say their names. The same way you want to write a resolution and drop every Black name you could think of to make it seem more weighted, to say that you're doing something yet not really doing something, is the same way I want you to be proactive in saying the names of the people who pay into this union. It ain't that deep. It ain't that deep. And if another person goes, well, I don't know if I like this word, so I don't know if I can vote for I don't know if I can vote for it. Fuck you. Because all of that is advisory to council, which means council can go in, reverse that word, change that word, revise that word, and they can push it through. If you are not voting for this bill, I'm going to be very direct. You are voting by not voting for it. You're voting for hate. Feel free to come into my inbox and we can go back and forth, and I won't even tell people your name. Because if you're about it, then you're about the work. Everything that's in this proposal could have been done decades ago, years ago, months ago. It could be done at the next meeting leading up to the convention, but it is not. Because at these meetings, you all want to talk about the minutia. You want to have your pre-planned things. You want to do all this. It's time to grow up. And don't ask another Black woman to join your council. Because these women are out here doing something. I've heard a lot more progressive stuff in this hour and 30 minutes than I heard at majority of these council meetings. Don't ask them to stop what they're doing when it comes to the world of progress to sit down in your little pity party so that you can have your political games. I am so over it. And not all counselors are bad. Not all counselors are bad. Not all. I hate when I have to do that because, you know, people like to manipulate the stories and stuff that people are saying. I am so unimpressed. I said a while ago, I've been teasing it, that we're modeling this after the Marvel Universe. It's WandaVision. We've hit that point. We have now taken 10 episodes to really address what the issues are. And these last 4 episodes, leading up to April 15th, is about paying the tax. We are releasing the receipts. And what these receipts are addressing is one fact. The union that I pay into, the union that has 51,000 members, it's built on lies. All right, that's been the receipts. Thank you all for watching On the Backs of Black Women. I don't know what just happened there. I don't know who that was. It scared me. But hey, I'll see you next Thursday.